This week's story is about a common criminal who commits a crime outside his usual operating area and the difficulty this poses for the police and the forensic people in trying to discover who did it. As in previous programs, the scientists and the police officers in the case appear as themselves. Others taking part are actors. Fictitious names have been used for people and places.
Cheers.
Michael George Wheeler was wanted in France for the shooting of a French policeman, and pending extradition had to sign on twice daily at a Hampshire police station.
Sorry.
For years, Wheeler had been known in the neighborhood as a petty thief and safe-breaker. But since the shooting of the French policeman, he had become dangerously unbalanced and unpredictable. His destination now, London.
Give me some money. Hurry up.
A red Renault saloon seen leaving the area in a suspicious manner. Victor 2, over.
Roger, Victor 2. Anyone else out there? MP, over.
Negative, MP. One casualty only. Repeat. One casualty only. Victor 2, over.
I see you, stand by.
Hurry up!
What have we got here then? We had very little to go on. We had the screen, and we had the raincoat. And in the raincoat, we had a piece of paper. And the piece of paper was really the most vital clue that we got at the beginning of this inquiry. We better bag this. Unfortunately, the killer had decided to rob the bank at the very moment that the local factory came out from lunch. Now that created a problem. We had many witnesses on the street, and the problem was that they were giving conflicting stories. Some were pointing out suspects who in fact were witnesses, and some witnesses in fact became suspects, and we had to sort all this out.
After the shooting, Wheeler returned to Hampshire and that same evening signed on again at Basingstoke Police Station.
Cheers, Tom.
Cheers, Dad.
Don't want to use any instruments on them that may damage the wads. Here we are. This is the retaining wad, and you can see where the shot been in contact with the wad when the gun was fired. Well, now, rather tedious part, removing shot one by one. I'd like to get between 20 and 30 as possible. I found numerous pellets inside the chest. There were also pellet wounds on the arms and backs of the hands. And the exposed parts of the hands and wrists, the face and the upper neck were stippled by small splinters of glass.
The size of the wads showed that a 12-bore shotgun had been used, and a comparison of the wads with our reference collection showed that the material was fibre and Thames board, which is a type used by the Ely factory. Most of the shot weighed 1.3 grains, and this showed that it was number 7 size shot, which is one of the smaller sizes that we regularly meet. Well, during the course of the year, the Ely factory manufactures millions of cartridges loaded with number 7 size shot, and the investigators needed more information than just the maker of the cartridge and the size of the shot. So I decided to pass the pellets over to our Special Services branch for analysis.
From my researches, I found there were 2 main types of shotgun pellets: game shot and trap shot. Game shot is a softer style of shot used for killing birds, where you don't want the pellets to pass straight through the bird, but to remain lodged within the body for maximum killing effect. Whereas in trap shooting, you're trying to shoot down a target moving away very fast from you. It's very hard, and you wish to keep your shot pattern compact. You want a harder style of pellet to shatter the target. The hardness in the pellet comes from the heavy metal antimony.
For analysis, the pellets are dissolved in acid. The solution is then vaporized. By the absorption of a beam of light which is passed through the vapor, the quantity of antimony in the original pellet can be determined.
I analysed the pellet from the victim, and from the antimony content, I discovered it was game shot. This hopefully was something more positive for the police to work on.
I knew from the size of the hole that the shot had been fired at very short range, But what we needed to know next was what had happened to the fragments of glass on impact. I decided to fire at an identical sheet of glass and photograph it using a flash unit set up to work off the sound of the gun firing.
Lights up! Firing!
The photography showed that a cloud of glass dust was blown back towards the firer, and therefore there should be glass on the clothing and the gun of the robber.
We were several days into the inquiry. We hadn't been getting very far at all. However, I did have very high hopes of a lead from the piece of paper that the killer had left in the raincoat in the bank. In one of the corners of this piece of paper, written in blue biro, is the name Raymond. We're very anxious to trace this man and interview him as quickly as possible.
Well, there you are. If your name is Raymond and you think you might have lost a green raincoat around the 10th of May, please get in touch with Deputy...
Actually, it's my cousin Harriet you want to speak to. She had the car that day.
Yes, well, the car was in the same place in the car park when I got back, so... Well, not exactly the same place, but I did notice my raincoat and sunglasses had gone, but, you know, I really didn't think it was worth bothering the police about.
We found some particles of glass in the debris from the car. They were covered with oil, placed under the microscope and heated up. All transparent materials bend light to a greater or lesser extent. This is called refraction. At the temperature at which both the glass and the oil are bending light by exactly the same amount, the glass disappears and the two have the same refractive index. Since we know the refractive index of the oil, we therefore knew the refractive index of the glass from the car. It had the same value as the glass from the bank screen. We could be fairly certain that this was the car used in the robbery.
We had now positively identified the car used by the killer, but we didn't know who he was and we didn't know where he was.
Take access, do you?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Starting the Barclay cast, somebody.
Look, haven't we better lay off for a bit?
Why?
Well, it's obvious, isn't it?
Look, darling, you do what you like. I'm going to enjoy myself while I can.
Oh, Ricky.
A case like this generates a lot of information, and from this information we are able to pull in the heavy villains from all over London and to carry out a series of interrogations.
Yeah, all right. I won't waste your time or mine. I did it. The bank job. It was me, all right? It's no problem.
Green was a bit of a case. We had to prove to him that he really hadn't done the murder. Another suspect, John Avery, known as the Hitman, a very hard robber.
The police issued an all stations directive which required that all shotguns coming into police possession came to the laboratory for examination. A very large number of guns came in, and we examined them all in minute detail. The work took weeks, but we found no glass.
It was very frustrating. We'd arrested many people for many crimes. We had information concerning 100 suspects, but we were still no nearer identifying the person who had done it.
To all units, attention is drawn to a white Ford Capri, which in the last few minutes was involved in an attack on the ABC filling station at Bolsover Rise. There is no further description of the car. One of the occupants is thought to be armed.
That's Michael Wheeler. Yeah, Bravo Mike 04, we just had a sighting of a white Ford Capri Bravo 40 Romeo Lima Alpha, believed to contain Michael Wheeler, subject to your previous attention drawn. We are in pursuit, servicing. Travelling east on the Upton Grey Road towards Bravo Bravo. He is attempting to get away.
We have just pursued white Ford Capri into Sandy Lane, Bravo Bravo. The driver has made off from the car across the fields. The white male, dark hair.
Hello, Derek. We got this car we've chased in here. Got
Yes.
a few things in the boot here.
Where's he gone?
Because of what we found in the car, he then became a prime suspect for the shooting in London. He had been involved in a fight and a shootout in an airport in France and had escaped in possession of a gun which belonged to a French policeman and had made his way back over to this country and was granted bail by the magistrates against our quite strong objections.
Hello, love. I'll be staying here for a while.
What's up?
I tell you what, I'm bloody tired.
Finding firearms in Wheeler's house immediately put him as one of our top suspects.
Hi, Michael. CID want to have a word with you.
Still living in Petersfield?
Yeah, just outside here.
Don't spend much time at home, though.
Every night, yeah.
Never there when I call.
Must have been out.
What about cheque frauds?
You what?
Cheque frauds.
I don't touch it.
You've been a busy boy, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been a very busy boy. Very busy.
Been to London recently?
No. No, I've not been there for ages now.
What about the pistol in your car?
What?
The pistol. The pistol in your car. Was it from a break-in?
What pistol?
The pistol we found. Was it from a break-in? Was it from a gun shop?
Yeah, no, but what are you talking about?
Everything was beginning to fit into place.
Look, I'll have to start thinking about myself.
But why don't you answer the question?
Just wait a minute, will you?
But we had one problem. We had a box of trap shooting cartridges that we'd found at Wheeler's house. But we knew that the shot that had killed the bank clerk was in fact game shot. The shot and wadding looked very similar to that recovered from the body. So I sent it to the laboratory for immediate investigation. The telephone call from the laboratory was electrifying. Game shot, not trap shot. The content of the cartridge was identical to the shot recovered from the body of the victim. It was game shot. How did it happen? Game shot in a trap shooting cartridge.
It's not inconceivable that a packaging error could have taken place, as game shot and trap shot look identical, and once the error has been made at loading, the subsequent operations are not designed to discover the fault.
Now this error was very helpful, because although we didn't have the gun, the evidence against Wheeler was getting stronger by the minute.
Well, I hope so, sir.
Yes, so do I. It would be very helpful if we can manage that. God, he's hanging. Get in, come on, quick. Get in. Get in. Right, push. Get in.
This is Michael Wheeler that you're expecting attempted suicide by hanging. We have maintained a clear airway and a spontaneous respiration is going on and it's got a good output.
Has he been conscious at all?
No.
Unconscious the whole way
Unconscious
through,
all
the whole
the
time?
Yes.
And do we know how long he'd been up there?
No, the policeman may be able to give you some more information on that.
Ready?
Right.
You tried 2-6 lift. Get the oxygen straight away, Lisa.
Yes. No reaction whatsoever.
did it. The young man in the bank. I shot him. But it was an accident. I did do it. But it wasn't me. It was an accident. I came up that morning. I wasn't looking for anywhere specific, but I passed that bank and I had it in my mind to do it then. I dropped the gun off in the Thames. I can show you where.
Although the gun had been underwater, it was really in quite good condition, and the internal mechanism had been preserved by a layer of grease. I washed out the grit from the action and allowed the swollen woodwork to shrink back to its normal size before carrying out any tests with it.
I would like to stress that the shooting was an accident.
The trigger pull was a little heavy at 6.5 pounds. A more usual pull would be about 4 pounds.
I pointed the gun at the boy and asked him to get me some money. He bent down to his right and he seemed to be there ages. I knocked the glass partition to make him hurry up.
I tested the gun to see if it would discharge when knocked against the glass, but even quite gentle knocks distorted the muzzle of the gun.
The money dropped into the tray and the gun went off.
Blows sufficiently hard to break the glass didn't cause the hammer to drop.
I never intended to shoot anyone.
In all the tests that I carried out, I was unable to make it fire accidentally.
Now, according to Wheeler's statement, the victim was taking money from the tray and turned round to his right when he shot him, or when he says the gun went off accidentally. This is quite impossible. We know that shot entered there, of course, hit the victim in the middle of the chest. If he'd been turned round towards the right, the direction of the shot would have been towards the right. In actual fact, it is towards his left, which is clearly shown on the X-rays. Now, from the distribution of shot on both arms, he couldn't possibly have had his hands below, because otherwise he wouldn't have got the scatter of shot on both hands and arms. We've also got this line of demarcation here, so we know that the body is up against the table. At the trial, the defence's case rested solely on the question of intent.
The case for the Crown is that this was murder.
That is not true, my lord.
The jury found Wheeler guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a recommendation that he serve no less than 25 years. So far, he has served 9. His girlfriend also went to prison for passing dud checks.
We'd like to make it clear that the bank Michael Wheeler robbed was not a branch of the Cooperative Bank. Next week, the experts are called to the scene of a murdered woman in a caravan. And there are more fascinating insights into the world of police forensic science in this BBC book, which accompanies the series.